Hey, what's up, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode 127 today, to discuss the Japanese Grand Prix and also the 2021 F1 rules, because there's been some interesting news with that. But it's been a while. I know, again, kind of getting towards the end of the season, a very patchy, very busy time of the year for all three of us, so we apologise for that. But we're back finally to discuss the Japanese Grand Prix. Usual host, myself, Callum, and Tom. Guys, the Japanese Grand Prix probably wasn't an all-time classic. I don't think it continues, technically, the streak of great races we've had ever since that horrendous French Grand Prix. Since then, it's been a good streak, probably up until Russia, I would say, because Russia was pretty crazy just because what happened there with the Ferrari swaps and the fact that the surprise DNF then meant that Mercedes somehow got a random 1-2 when it didn't look like it. But that one, I wouldn't categorise as continues a streak. It was still an interesting race weekend nonetheless, because obviously we had the very weird thing of qualifying on the Saturday morning, 1-2 for Ferrari, and then within 20 seconds of the race, they bottled it, basically. Their entire race was gone because Bottas was into first. Vettel nearly jump-start, or he did technically jump-start and got away with it. And Leclerc obviously hit Verstappen. So it was a bit of a weird one, really, at the start. And then the rest of it kind of just, I don't know, petered out, really. But, I don't know. What do we make of Valtteri Bottas winning the race and Mercedes getting the constructors' title then?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably best to start with Mercedes and just kind of put your hands together for him, because it was... I think was it the F1 account that did a whole video on, like, it was like 1 is brilliant, 2 is it basically counted up.
Yeah.
And you've got to think, like, 6 world championships in a row, and I see comments all the time, like, people like to take the mick on Twitter and be like, oh, aided by Pirelli back in 2013, or this thing and back in then. But you've got to give your hand to them. They have done an absolutely exceptional job, led by, obviously, the 2 world champions in Hamilton and Rosberg over the years, and Bottas is doing, well, he did a stellar job on race day on Sunday, but you've got to give it to them. They've put an absolute shift in, and beautiful tribute to Niki Lauda this year to kind of just dedicate that championship towards him, because he was at the helm, and undoubtedly I bet he made a massive, massive impact. So fair play to them. I'd love them to not get a 7th, as bad as that sounds. I'd love for them to be a bit more of a bit of a fight at the front, and I think we are slowly getting there. Obviously after we speak about Ferrari and their downfalls, but no, without a doubt, absolutely exceptional job, and fair play to every single one of them.
I've got a lot to say about Mercedes. 6 championships, well played. That's it.
Oh, right. Yes, right.
I'm just bored now. I had a bit of a mini rant on Twitter, like it's GG's, but man, I need something like next year. I'm praying with the regulations staying the same, like something happens, because like I'll take anyone at this point just to like compete, because I need something as a neutral.
I mean, it's been bearable though. I think the last 3 years really haven't felt like Merc dominance though, because of the fight that the fighting that has been here and there with Ferrari, so it's been kind of more bearable, actually. And also, 2016 was pretty decent, obviously, because of the whole Rosberg v Hamilton thing. But
still felt inevitable.
Yeah, inevitable, yeah. But I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of a bad thing that I've excited to accept that inevitability in a way, which is kind of a bad thing, maybe. So, yeah, next year, hopefully, it is not going to be maybe 7, but there's probably a strong chance, because like Cal said as well, Merc are just, they work their socks off, and that team, even when they're behind, they work their socks off then to get back into the front and the foray. So, it's pretty mad. Just think about it. 6 double championships. Obviously, it's inevitable that one of the Merc drivers will now win mathematically. It's probably going to be Hamilton. Let's just be real. But Bottas is still in the mix, but mathematically, but it will probably be Hamilton. So that'll be 6 double world championships. Is just insane. But that race, was a bit of an odd one for them. Obviously, they didn't perform in qualifying. The pace, though, on Friday practice looked so good, and so I wasn't really surprised once Bottas got into the lead. He was able to control that very well. I was surprised at Hamilton. He wasn't able to do much, but at the same time, you could see, I don't know, the way the cars were and the pace was. Hamilton was getting so close every time into turn 1, and sector 1, he was looking like on rails, even despite having some damage from Leclerc's little mishap on the back straight. And then every straight, especially through off spoon curves, the Ferrari just shot off the way. So it's just a bit of stalemate there. But I don't think there's much else to talk about Mercedes really in that race, is there, guys?
I want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
Hamilton's radio, when he was discussing about I've lost this race, with the strategy, and he had a bit of a rant on the radio.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one for me, because I'm not a fan of when the driver speaks to the team like this.
Right, like criticise them a little bit.
Especially publicly, people give, and I gave, like Alonso stick, for example, with the McLaren Honda, and that was, even then, that was probably more justifiable because of how bad it was. And it's a double-edged sword because with Hamilton, he's done this before, like this season especially, he's had a few moments where he's had like a bit of a mini rant on the radio where he thinks what he thinks is the better decision, and sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. But, for example, Hungary springs to mind, where he had a rant, about the strategy, but ended up being, what he wanted would have been the wrong call. And it's interesting because at the same time, that's probably what makes him so strong, because I think he's so highly demanding as a driver. They have to stay on their game.
Yeah.
And I think it's those little moments that really make the difference. And I can appreciate that. But having said that, at the same time, I can't like it because I feel like it is quite... It's not like a soft bashing. It is quite harsh public radio messaging, and it's out there for the world to hear. So it's almost like Mercedes get their pants pulled down a bit. It's a bit embarrassing, I think, at times. So I've got an issue with it, but at the same time, I kind of respect it. It's weird.
I know what you mean. It's in because as a Hamilton fan, like I saw a few tweets. I think it might have been Justin Sutton that tweeted about the fact that, is it Hamilton who just moans a lot, or do they just broadcast his radio more often when he does moan? In the same way that maybe they might broadcast Vettel, if when he moans, they might broadcast him more than a driver lower down. But I do think that he does go over the line, like he is. And I think, and this is what I mean, I think it's a good trait to have, but in general life, it's bad. He's a sore loser. He is a sore loser.
A good example was Leclerc recently. He's had his moment, but I think he's also realised, okay, I'm speaking out publicly against Ferrari here. I'm just gonna be careful with what I say.
Yeah.
And he's always said, like, I respect your decision. I'm just letting you know that, I'm not happy. I'm angry, or we'll speak about this after the race, that kind of thing.
But then he calls into question how effective that is.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You don't, in a sport which is all about getting your elbows out, you don't want to push over, and you could argue that Leclerc has been pushed over a little bit by Ferrari this season, and I think whenever Hamilton has, he instantly, the race afterwards, responds. Both Mercedes and himself respond. So I do agree with you with the fact that it's not very good, and I also agree with the fact that that's the reason why they have won so many championships, is because if they're not winning, then that's not good enough.
Yeah.
That's a simple thing, and I think that's quite admirable. As awful as it looks when they don't win, it's quite admirable when they do win, because they look like an unstoppable force.
Yeah. And also on the topic of radio, shout out Bottas. Nobody's favourite driver here, but that little radio at the end, James, is Valtteri. Fair play, son. Fair play. Fair play.
Yeah, meme lord over
it. Yeah, it worked out at the end.
Man played the Uno switch card.
Yeah, he literally played the reverse for the actual good way to say it. So that's Mercedes at the Japanese Grand Prix. Ferrari then, as I said, imploded within 20 seconds. Vettel, very weird. False start, then bad start, basically. I don't know about you two. Have you seen any of it on Twitter? But I feel like for me, everyone was caring far too much about the fact that he jump started by like a millisecond.
Well, apparently he didn't. It's the exact same thing Bottas had at Austria last year.
Well, the thing is, like the FI deemed there's no penalty because within the constraints of what they deem human reaction time, he was fine. But then there's videos from the stands and stuff that like show him budging a little bit. But then he still got a bad start. Even he said he got a bad start. Hamilton laughed a little bit because Hamilton was adamant that he jump started, should have got a penalty. Doesn't matter for Lewis, but obviously that's the racer within him of wanting to see the competitor get a penalty ahead of him. But I don't know.
Michael
for me,
Massey said the sensor didn't go off. Like they got sensors, and
the
sensor went off. So.
Either way, whatever the hell happened, I don't know. Just for me, like on Twitter, everyone just cared far too much. Like it did not matter because he got a shocking start anyway, and Bottas jumped him. If he got a great start, then fine, make a fuss of it. But it didn't really matter at all. Then in the end, like I don't know. Maybe that's me being naive or something. I don't know. I just don't. I didn't care. It calls
into question the fact that like you can't. I don't think you can use it as a justifiable excuse to go, oh well, he had a bad start anyway. It's like with Kimi, he had a shit start.
Right, but his jump start was a clear 3 seconds before the lights went out.
But I don't know why they didn't just go, you can't move before the red lights. Isn't that just a lot easier? Like, I don't know the sensors. And why do you have the sensor to say, well, you can't move?
I think it's because I think
it just needs to be a bit more black and white than rather than. I think it did gain
there is
a meter
black
or
and
two.
white but the black and white's got like some wiggle room because the sensor box is basically the pit box, the little grid slot basically, and because he didn't move outside of it, they were like, oh, he didn't really move then.
I think the best way to resolve this is if F1 had some kind of like goal line technology system with the line or the lines or the the little yellow line, anything, mainly the box. So if from the top, if a millimeter of the tire on the car touches the line, you know, like Hawkeye in tennis or something like that.
Yeah.
Literally, some kind of system like that where, say they have like a Vettel or Raikkonen a mistake, and if the car jumps, if they don't get out that box, I don't think it's a problem because they haven't got out of like an illegal territory bound. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're still within the box.
Left the
So
grid box.
you've got to remember that this is a sport that sometimes likes to play within lines and then sometimes doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as that apparently in F1 terms, but in football terms, if the ball's out, then it's out. If you've moved out your pit box, then you're out. So it shouldn't be. You're not being naive. It shouldn't be as like up in arms. It should either be black and white. But the FIA obviously aren't very good at making black and white rules.
Yeah, well, I think that's maybe
again.
what a lot of people are fussing about more so than penalising Vettel, more than just the FIA of what the hell they're doing. But I don't know, just like I was reading through it like 10 a.m, just like getting the aftermath of the Grand Prix, and everyone was just still banging on about this stupid start. I was like, isn't there more to talk about in this race than his little tiny false start?
It goes to show that people don't really want to race either, though, because okay, put this all aside, they let one slide, and then surely as like a neutral, you want to see a bit of a race. Like I know, okay, you might have got one anyway if Vettel's not there, but still, like we did with hindsight, we didn't know before, like after the race and before the race how it was going to pan out. So on paper, you want the strongest drivers there just to have a race, and for the sake of like a grey area, which you can lean on whatever side of the fence you want to lean on, depending on whatever decision is taken.
Yeah.
Do you want to just ruin and make it a boring race, which it turned out to be kind of anyway? But still, you get my point. It could have been a good race.
Yeah. So that was a bit odd with Vettel.
Very
with
bizarre.
Leclerc, it was well, I don't know what you guys make of the incident, the contact between him and Verstappen. I feel like it was almost not similar, but sort of similar to when I think it was Perez and Gasly at the end of the race when they hit, and Perez didn't really give Gasly that much room on the inside. But because it was lap one, I feel also there's that usual air of like, you know, like a little bit of leniency because it's lap one. Things can happen lap one. And then the aftermath was even weirder with Leclerc because obviously they told him to come in. He didn't cut. He was like, oh no, I feel fine. Like the pace feels fine. And then obviously bits of his car just started flying off everywhere and actually broke bits of Hamilton's car, like on the onboard of Hamilton's car afterwards. The little horns, horn winglets that you can just see past the halo. The left one was clearly broken off. So it was kind of...
And he lost his mirror.
Yeah, and the mirror was a bit mad. And speaking of mirrors, did you guys see the clip of Leclerc through 130R? That was... insane.
Yeah, actually, we need to speak about that afterwards as well because that's been a major debate. There's been major debating points, but if we speak about Leclerc first,
go on.
Just clumsy. That really clumsy.
It was
He just understeers out wide. Verstappen's minded his own business. Not the first time we've seen Leclerc be as clumsy as that, but it's like one bit of washout, bit of dirty air.
The thing is, I'm neutral. Yeah, I like Ferrari, of course. It's just the thing I've always grown up liking them. But generally, I'm neutral, and I can keep a pretty simple judgment on things. And end of the day, if Sebastian Vettel does what Leclerc does at Japan, I know exactly what the internet and what the meme's going to be. So I don't see why. Again, this is why now it's kind of harsh on Vettel now. 'Cause he's now a meme, but Leclerc hasn't exactly had a good season. He's had his moments. He's had obviously this race in Japan, Monaco, messy weekend springs to mind. He also crashed in Hockenheim under no pressure. He's also had his moments this season where he's thrown away a lot of points for himself and for the team. And again, Ferrari can't afford that. Obviously it's too late now, but if you combine his loss of points with Vettel's, it could have been a different season. And also on the topic of the penalty, I was very shocked it took as long as it did for him to get anything for the Verstappen one.
Yeah.
Considering, again, if we, for example, using past races as an example, what happened in Canada, when there was no contact, yet Leclerc spun a car around, and there was no penalty given.
The consistency is It's consistent as
something,
pig shit, honestly.
It's like when I saw how long it took for the decision to come through, I was like, how is this?
They took a long time.
Well, they initially said no further action.
It was unbelievable.
Bizarre.
So like straight away, I'm thinking to myself, okay, fair enough. In a way, I can see like you said, lap 1, dirty air, cold tires. I can see it, but then it doesn't make no sense why Vettel got penalised in Canada. This needs to be resolved. This is becoming a problem now, like, big time. And again, people want to talk about it because let's say Verstappen's not involved, or Hamilton's not involved, who have the biggest fan bases, so not as much noise gets made about it. But this needs to get resolved because, like,
it has been rare.
It's
Consistency this year has been a little bit, just a bit jank, really, all round.
It's becoming like Premier League football standard of stewarding, officiating.
But it's also bossing around the cars on track. So it literally leads into the next bit where it's like, well, why wasn't Leclerc showing the black and orange flag straight away? Because that car was obviously unsafe to drive, and it proved it. It took Norris. It gave Norris a huge amount of damage because it got earlier. Debris stuck in his, I think it was brake dot. I think it was.
Yep.
And, well, I mean, I'm not going to be all like, oh, it could have hit Hamilton, but it was a lot, and it was a very large piece of debris, and it ripped his whole mirror off. Luckily, the halo was there, because I think it did hit the halo, so I think it steered it away. I don't think it was going to hit him anyway. But, it's still not safe. And why they're just like, go on, just stay out, have it flapping about. Why not? Very bizarre.
In other news, on Ferrari still, I put a tweet out, a couple of tweets. Is Sebastian Vettel back? Because since Singapore, he looks really, really good. And again, I'm going to tie us back to Leclerc in the sense that I'm judging Leclerc fairly. I'm being a little bit, maybe people say I'm being a bit harsh, but he has made as many mistakes as Vettel this season, in my opinion. And, with Sebastian Vettel, I feel like last season is always going to be like a dark cloud hanging over his head. But so far, since Singapore, even Singapore in itself, he drove fantastically well. Then Russia, race pace was surprisingly incredible. Yeah. Like no one saw that coming.
Yeah.
And then his qualifying at Suzuka was shades of Canada when he got pole. Yeah, again, it was like he was comfortably clear. And even in the race, like generally the way he kept Hamilton behind as well, maybe the Vettel of old might have crumbled, that kind of thing, or done a rash move, but he kept him behind again. So like there's little details, and it does seem like Sebastian's kind of got back on top of things now, which is good to see.
I wouldn't say he's fully back yet. I think he still needs some time to judge.
Barely yet, but
he's getting his swing back a little bit. Yeah, he's definitely got a bit of a momentum going on right now, and it's hopefully good to see him carry that all the way to the end of the season, because then that'll carry over through the winter, you'd hope, to next year as well. So I agree with that. Definitely, like the qualifying lap especially was like, oh, that's like some 2013 Vettel going on there. That's like, Leclerc was just like, Leclerc said it, the quote was like, I just couldn't match him at all, could not match him at all. And it was like,
Vettel always used to be brilliant at Suzuka. He always used to be.
Yeah. So it's his fifth pole. Seven in Singapore, 5 in Singapore.
You can understand when people go, maybe we have got the Vettel of old back when he's pulling out laps like that again. And ironically, he does indeed make a mistake this race by jumping the start briefly and giving himself an awful start. But
even then,
he's
I wouldn't
on
class
the way
that.
back, but I'm not saying he's back just yet.
That start issue, I wouldn't class that as like that's not in the same ballpark of like things that's happened to him in the last year and a half. That's like, it's one of them things that it just can happen. Like Bottas did it at Austria last year, but he didn't stall or stop. He just kind of kept on, and everyone thought he jumped the start, but under review, he was like millimetrical to like the very thousandth of a second. Light. Yeah, so like it's those kind of like very fine margins. Yeah. If Vettel decides to not stop and pull away and not double commit to a second start, he's gone into turn one and he's holding on to that. Whether he wins the race or not is a different question. But again, it's those little fine margins.
With Vettel, I think with the margin with Vettel's one, it would have definitely been, though. I think they would have ruled it as he's preempted the lights going out. Whereas with Bottas's, it was so fine that you can't like say he preempted it. Whereas like with Vettel's, is almost like you've basically counted and you're guessing when the light's gone out, which you can't do. You can't guess when the light's going to go out.
You've got like 3, 2, why not now? Let's go.
I think that's what when the whole Bottas thing came out, they brought it out like in the rule book or whatever. It says you can't preempt it, but because Bottas was so close, you can't say humanly possible he was preempting anything.
I remember Bottas, if frame by frame, I think there was 2 or 3 frames before the lights actually go out. That if you look at the Pirelli on his tyre, the logo, it's rolling 2 or 3 frames before the light goes out. So again, it's those kind of margins. Again, I wouldn't class that under the mistakes he's had recently. And I think on another day, he pulls away and doesn't do the second pull away. You know, it's just one of them things.
But yeah, like, so you just don't know as well though, because the Mercedes pace was really good that race. It was clearly very, very good on Friday. So I think maybe it would have been a more interesting race potentially then, because Bottas would have to go and overtake him.
Leclerc is a better start as well. You never know. They could play a bit of 2-on-1, you know, like tactics and like Singapore, make something happen. Do you know what I mean? So it could have been a different race. But yeah, overall, just I thought it was worth mentioning. I think he deserves a little bit of credit the way he's been driving lately. Cause,
I mean,
since Singapore,
I think obviously Twitter's maybe one thing, but I've never thought that he didn't deserve the credit the last few races for sure.
Well, listen, I'm not his biggest fan. I hate to say it, but I was one of those guys that probably would have booed him in 2013 if he was in the podium if I was at a race. I would have been one of those guys. But you know, there's times when you can you can look at the other side of the coin and be like, okay, yeah, fair play, you know, respect.
Well, you're gone.
I was going to say, before we move, because Ferrari have stirred up the pot with confrontation and ideas. It has been rolling around on Twitter, if you don't have Twitter or if you're living under a rock, that the Leclerc going through 130R with one hand on the wheel while he's holding onto his left hand wing mirror, is now caused up a stir, because now suddenly everyone thinks they're Formula 1 drivers and said that that's too easy. We'll ignore the fact that he's pulling 5 times the force of gravity through there. Obviously, that's gone now. Gravity doesn't exist. You can probably tell my stance on it.
Yeah, no, I think it's
Formula 1 cars haven't suddenly got too easy.
You seem you're kind of on the fence with this one, Callum.
No, do you reckon?
No, I think I look at that clip and go, that's impressive. That's very impressive. The fact that he also uses his other arm as well, like he crisscrossed it, so that's even more impressive.
I think it's because you'd probably get more stability. By
I thought that as well. I was like, why didn't he do the other way? But if I thought about it, like if we like way back in the day when it was like, what was that, 2013 days on the F1 game where we used to do like one-handed challenges, for the left hand you'd always want like your left hand.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
and he's right-handed, so your stronger hand would probably hold onto the mirror better as well.
Probably, yeah. But,
so you can
it's one of those like old arguments that's come up before in the past about F1 cars easy to drive or tracks being, you know, not able to be challenging enough for the cars. It's just sort of white noise.
Don't get me wrong. There may be an element of it, because even Hamilton said a few times in the last year or two, he said like, I don't feel like these cars give us a physical challenge, which he has said, and he's one of the more experienced drivers. Like, you think that the young drivers are even fitter. You know, every time the new ones come in, they're even fitter than the ones in the past. So maybe there's an element of it, but at the same time, that has to be respected. What Leclerc did, that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
I'm going to say something really controversial here.
Go on.
But didn't they say that Eau Rouge was easy? And what happened this year? Just saying, just because it's too easy doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
That's.
Right, okay, sorry, I apologise. That's terrible. I was laughing.
Yeah, no, that's.
Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Like, that's
just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
Yeah,
and I think it's quite a old argument to sit there and go, "Oh, it's too easy."
Yeah.
They're driving at 200 miles an hour. Death is still on the line in this sport. It's a lot rarer, but it's still there.
Yeah, you could go through a corner 500 times.
Go away with your 19th century opinions. It's no.
You could go through a corner 500 times, and one of those times the car wobbles differently or something like that. It's always going to be a challenge. They're not
These drivers are paid all this money to be consistent.
Yeah, they're not
we wouldn't even make it to 130R.
They're not switching off at 130R and just going in blind like, oh, close my eyes if I want to do the next lap. Like, so yeah, no. I like I said, I think it's always just white noise when these arguments come up about it, because it's always just going to ebb and flow with different cars, different eras, different track differences, because even the old tracks sometimes change their, you know, the white line might move a little bit here and there, the curb might be different one year.
There's always going to be that part of the fan base. So.
Yeah, there's always going to be that part, and it's the part I never listen to on Twitter, and I usually don't follow most of them. So
usually the older fan base, but you know, and to be fair, like even I looked at it, I was like, wow, that probably isn't like sort of the hardest thing that Leclerc's ever done. I think that's what maybe people are mistaking it with, is the fact that it's not the hardest thing that an F1 driver's probably ever done, but compare it to what we can do.
It's still pretty
the
sick.
reason
Yeah,
why
it's
they're
like,
on
Jesus.
six-figure salaries
I don't remember
is
this.
because
I think people are saying, for example, I think what these people are trying to reference is, for example, if you didn't know, 15 years ago, 130R was different. It was a lot tighter. It was more like less banked and much more of a dangerous corner. Dare I say, you had to lift. It was much more of a challenge. I think those people are like, well, like 130R back in my day was much more of a challenge. Nowadays 130R is so easy. It's flat out. You can easily do one-handed. Look at me.
Yeah. All right. Moving on then to Alexander Albon, P4 in the Red Bull. Talking about Red Bull, obviously Verstappen retired in the end. Albon, very strong drive, aggressive drive. Obviously had that tang with Lando Norris, which was a little bit debatable. But I mean, Albon and Norris pals off the track, so they didn't really care too much about that afterwards. They're laughing about it. But I would say solid drive considering the circumstances of everything like that. Obviously, the max he could have hoped for. So yeah, I mean,
isn't that his best ever result in Formula One?
I think so as well. Yeah, and it was
fair play to
him and Carlos Sainz P5. Both those lads. Great jobs for their respective teams. Carlos Sainz again.
Sainz
we hardly saw any of him in that race once more, but he does the job and gets another P5. Cracking. And
Sainz was so close to fourth. He was 10 seconds
off.
Yeah. So a safety car or a couple of laps, and he's got it. It's so close.
Yeah. So very, very solid drives for those two boys. Ricardo, also another one, to be fair, P6. He got let through by Hülkenberg, and he said, I'll on the radio, I will get them now. Thank you for letting me through. I'll do the job. And he did the job. He made the moves.
For once.
On Sergio Perez and got through. Obviously, Leclerc's penalty elevated in one place to P6, but still did the job in terms of getting it done. Because a lot of the times it can be quite awkward in F1 where you get when you tell your team to be let through, and more often than not, it's always quite awkward because sometimes it's just the car, the car, the dirty air.
They never actually overtake.
Yeah,
but there's an asterisk.
This time it worked out for him. Obviously, then Leclerc, like we mentioned, the penalty afterwards, very, very long afterwards, but he eventually got demoted down to P7. Gasly, P8, very, very strong drive for him. I was happy. He got into Q3 with the Toro Rosso for the first time, and I'm just happy. And, for him, I think this is the best advertisement you could ever have, actually, in terms of showing he still can drive an F1 car quickly.
I really think they're going to stay where they are next season. Because I just think that's the strongest they can have for both teams.
Right, I would say that in a way as well. I would agree with that, and I think for Gasly, I can't speak for him obviously, but I think he could be mentally happier in Toro Rosso doing a great job slapping Kvyat up like this.
It's a relatively strong pairing, and they'll probably score consistent points.
I think as well, the general F1 world has realised that Red Bull is Verstappen's car, because anyone that's in it is
the Verstappen Bull, yeah.
Yeah,
it's just what I've been saying for ages. The man-machine combo is no one's gonna. I think Hamilton wouldn't touch him in that car. I really don't. I think it's just such a strong link. I've compared it to Marquez in MotoGP with the Thunder bike. It's no one's touching him. It's as simple as that. There's certain things that you just can't beat. It's just a funny thing. It reminds me also of Alonso in Renault really as well when he won his championships. It's just the synergy is unbelievable. Speaking of Renault, just quickly, there is an asterisk on Ricciardo's 6th place because and Hülkenberg are under investigation.
Yeah, they got this. What was it? Racing Point have lodged
serious investigation.
Racing Point have lodged what's the actual detail?
It's an official complaint because apparently their brake bias system is automated.
Bias.
Yeah, so they haven't got to adjust it manually to each corner. It's programmed, automatic. It adjusts itself.
Yeah.
But basically, this is a serious one because I don't remember who tweeted it. I can't claim the source. It's not obviously. I can't remember right now, but I'd love to say who it was. But they said this could be a serious one because it won't just affect this race. If they find this issue goes back
the whole season.
Races, it depends. I mean, obviously, we don't know when they had this in.
Hungary.
So, depends when they installed the system. But whenever it may be, they could lose a lot of points. And Racing Point are breathing down the neck in the constructors. So, it could be a weird form of...
Toro Rosso as well. Toro Rosso ahead of Racing Point.
Yeah, true, true.
I do love the memes surrounding Renault, that the fact that they've cheated and not benefited, really. They've not really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going to cheat, at least do it properly.
At least do it right. Come on.
To be fair, I was gonna say I think it's quite nice, like story-wise, how like Racing Point last season lost all their points as a constructor and had gave.
And now they're getting their revenge back.
And now they're getting one back. It's a nice little bit of a positive karma there for those guys.
It's someone else's turn to lose their points. You lose a point. You lose a point. So we got so Sergio Perez P9, Hulkenberg P10. Then obviously asterisks on all those sort of things.
Perez lucky to finish the race again because there was a checkered flag kerfuffle.
Yeah,
He should have got points.
The system was one lap earlier than it should have been.
The fact that the checkered flag dropped a lap earlier meant that crash between Gasly and Perez meant nothing.
It did not
because
happen.
Otherwise, Stroll would have scored a point and Hulkenberg would have finished in 9th.
Yep. Well, there you go. Sometimes F1's
like a paradox.
Weird.
It never happened. It's a complete different world.
It's an alternative universe. That one lap. So and then I guess the rest of the order is basically look like this. Then Kvyat, Norris, Raikkonen, Grosjean, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Russell, Kubica, and then obviously Verstappen with the DNF. Really tough race weekend for Alfa Romeo. Raikkonen had nothing to say apart from he was just baffled. Like they just didn't really know where the pace went. And to be fair, I don't think everyone.
They've been horrible since Spa.
Yeah, it's been frustrating.
It's been a rough one
because it looked like they were building some momentum up after Spa, and then I
want to make a quick prediction here and now. I don't think Kubica is going to see out the season.
Well, you mean what? Williams will boot him, or he'll leave early?
It could be a mutual thing.
Right, mutual agreement.
I reckon it could be with a little bit of extra money, get someone else in ready for next season.
I think so. I don't think he's going to see the last race. Anyone, whoever it may be, they got in plan. Right. Could we see Hulkenberg move early? Ocon make a late, or early return. Just don't know. It could be a bit of musical chairs. But I'm just saying, I've got a funny feeling. It's looking a bit nasty, and
because he had that quote about his wing being changed, wasn't it? So
in Russia, yeah, they literally retired him in Russia. They retired him just because they didn't have enough wings. In the end, it proved to be right.
Crash.
They proved to be right. Williams were right because Kubica crashed in qualifying. He binned it, so they needed the wing. But still, this is it's so confusing. Again, this is a bit of a situation here because Kubica's main sponsor, which is the team's main sponsor, Williams, on the car, they were like, "Why did you bring in our driver? For no reason." And it's got a bit nasty. And apparently, according to reports, I saw Will Buxton tweet, it's getting a bit ugly behind the scenes.
Right.
So, I think obviously Kubica's not really praised Williams too much, but I think in that scenario, I could see it happening because, how many wings do they need to make now for the end of the season? You look at it and you'd go, well, you'd hope just one if you're not going to improve it. But maximum 2, per driver, and I know a front wing's 25 grand, I think, something stupid like that.
Probably more than that.
But maybe a bit more than that, actually. 100 grand,
a lot more
I
than
think.
that.
I mean, not a Williams one is probably 25 grand.
I remember that they pinned, probably. I remember they pinned Verstappen's crash. I can't remember where it was, and Helmut Marko went, that probably cost us 100 grand, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot. Because usually, if you're taking the wing off, you don't just take the wing off, you take a corner off as well. Yeah. So, you put it in that sort of literal money terms, and you go, they probably don't have enough money to keep replacing wings, especially with a crash like that in qualifying. I was wetting myself in the club. It just drove on the grass straight into the wall.
It literally was one of the weird. Just what? Come on, man!
Reminded me of Timo Glock back in 2009, if anyone remembers.
Yeah.
When he put it in the wall in Q1.
We've all been there in the F1 game, okay? We've all done it at some point. I thought
I
Magnussen's was worse.
I'm not stupid.
I thought Magnussen's was worse. I thought Magnussen's was worse because he would have been fine, but he let off the brake and just let the car go straight into the barrier.
That was a weird one.
He was wrestling it though. He was wrestling it to spin back round onto the track rather than going off because obviously there was gravel.
Both were just very what's going on here, lads?
But Magnussen admitted that it was embarrassing. I think Kubica was just like...
Yeah. Kubica's just staying the stance. No.
Yeah, he was like...
CBA.
So,
just believing that it didn't happen.
Yeah,
it was like, no, it definitely didn't happen.
No, he didn't see it. He closed his eyes. He didn't see it. It didn't happen.
The car just has that much understeer. It just goes off.
Yeah.
Turn, but nothing happened. It just straight on.
Yeah. So that was the Japanese Grand Prix then, but I guess we move into the final bit of topic then for this podcast, which is talking about the 2021 rules, because there was a bit of news coming out that apart from 4 of the teams, the remaining 6 basically were not fully happy with the 2021 rules and would probably not back it like they did an internal poll of all the teams, and 6 of them were like, yeah, we're not actually that happy with them, and we'd rather keep the rules we got right now.
And those out of those 6, 3 of them do include the top teams we have right now.
Yeah,
Obviously.
the top
Obviously.
teams though, there is a caveat. The top teams have a counter proposal that they think will have the same effect in terms of like the dirty air, like reducing that. And so the FIA I think it's something like the FIA will actually maybe look at that proposal and they'll judge it. And if it somehow works the same way, there could be a possibility they go with this proposal or something. But basically the time's ticking, and that poll...
There was a meeting on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, and that poll
Paris.
was just a bit like, well... This is a bit crap, isn't it? And I said it, and it got a lot of feedback. A lot of people going one way or the other. A majority, I think, agree with my point of like, and I've said it before on the podcast. I think we've all kind of said it before. Of like, it's not great to see the teams dictate the sport they're in.
No, and if anyone's going to have a say, it's the teams that are struggling, so they can get back up.
Right? Yeah.
Not the ones that are on top.
And obviously, there's the caveat of like, there's the argument. Stable rules actually mean that teams can catch up. But obviously, we're not just trying to allow teams to catch up to the top 3 teams. We're trying to make the entire sport better in terms of the following. And so, even if there is Formula A and Formula B, the racing within those Formula A and Formula Bs will be better as well.
Yeah, there's 2 different things. There's the separation between the top teams and the rest of the grid, and then there's just the general improving of the racing. You can't blur the lines. You need to try and find.
Yeah, they're not the same thing. Yeah.
So I kind of took the mick and I was like, well, looks like we're just going to be stuck with DRS forever then, because that's the best sort of racing we're going to be getting. But the odd stance on it is like, for example, like McLaren, they were for the rules.
Yeah.
And I'm sat there like, well, they've just made the biggest step forward they have in years.
And they're for it.
Like, why would they want to? Like Renault, they were obvious. Williams, they were obvious, and the other team was...
I think Alfa Romeo.
Alpha, that's right.
But the funny thing is, all these teams, these 4 teams, are not teams that would struggle financially or get swallowed up, because normally you'd think the teams that need a bit of help would be the ones that try and push for change.
Well, you look at it like Racing Point, for example. They've not got all the money in the world.
No, exactly.
So like you could kind of understand why they wouldn't want to change, because obviously they've put all this research and development into their current car. They'd be like, oh, this is a bit of a pain in the arse, to then be like, oh, let's put research into a completely different concept and formula of a car. And like people pointed out that like Mercedes Racing Point, well, there's a link there. Ferrari Haas, there's another link there.
Yeah.
Red Bull Toro Rosso, there's a link there. And I think someone from Haas tweeted out, or no, someone from who works for Racing Point was like, nope. We literally just think this way. Like, they don't believe on the behalf of Mercedes. The only 2 you can guarantee are Toro Rosso and Red Bull. Shock. Or as we not even spoke about this, what they're going to be called next season.
We did.
I've forgotten it already.
Me and Arif did. Alpha Tauri.
Right.
Or Alpha Tauro or something
Alpha Tauri, I think it was.
Yeah.
So, it's all right. It's not going to be confusing. There's only going to be 2 alphas on the grid now.
Clothing brand for Red
Yeah.
Bull. But yeah, 2 alphas.
Great. But yes, they shouldn't be defining the goal.
No, I don't. Yeah, that's simple. And people are tweeting me back saying, "But then you wouldn't have the team. You have to have the teams agreeing to stuff to have the sport that you're talking about." But I'm like, no, I really wholeheartedly believe in almost the Jeremy Clarkson approach. Not obviously as angrily and as expletive as Jeremy Clarkson, but it should be a case of F1 go, this is our game, this is our rules. You either join or you leave.
There's a team on the horizon that's thinking about joining because of the 2021 rules, I believe.
Yeah, little murmurings. Yeah,
there's a few murmurings of new teams wanting to join, which would be nice. Yeah,
F1 team.
But I just don't understand. Like you look at it and it's like deep within Mercedes' heart, like, do they really want the sport to be this boring all the time?
Yeah, I just don't get
deep down they do.
Obviously, I think also the top 3 teams have this other proposal that they've apparently formed. So maybe they're like being very high and mighty of like, oh, the concept we've thought is much better, and so we should do this concept. Obviously, they'll show that to the FI. They'll judge it. Hopefully, they just choose the right decision. But for the other teams, obviously, Toro Rosso, like you said, follows Red Bull. The other 2 don't know what they're playing at. I don't get it, though. It's just very... counterproductive to be like this, like doing an internal poll and be like, no, I don't like the rules. Like,
yeah, very bizarre. But
Yeah.
aren't they supposed to be deciding?
Yeah, Wednesday.
soon.
Yeah, I was
Wednesday.
gonna say. I remember they said October, and
Apparently, these are definitive. This is going to be we will know on after Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. Like,
Right.
Apparently.
Why are we shooting this podcast on a Monday?
I don't know. Wasn't my call.
Because
I didn't send a
Because
DM
we
this
can't
morning.
wait any longer to do the podcast after Japan, because we've waited already 2 weeks since the last podcast, basically.
But we can always do another one if
That's
we need
why.
to. So that's
Well,
Yeah, if it's
we can
juicy.
do another one later next week, because it's an off race one, so we can always do it like this time next week on Monday or Tuesday for the rules or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a nice way to end it then, basically, on those rules and the kind of baffling thing about that. So that's been this week's podcast then. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, apologies. It's been obviously since Hungary when we went to that GP and then coming back after, it's been so hectic for all three of us in terms of videos for me and Tom. Cal's obviously changed his, if you don't know, he now edits videos for Veloce now. So a lot of stuff's changed in the background. So our lives are very, very busy. And generally speaking, also, you guys kind of know the pattern. It's like been that for like 3 years now. Generally towards the end of the season, it starts getting a little bit less frequent just because you kind of get burnt out a little bit with the podcast, basically. But we're trying to do as best a job we can to keep up with it. Hopefully, we'll try and get one for these new rules being confirmed next weekend. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this one, then be sure to hit that like button. Let us know what you thought in the comments below about that, especially the debates about the 2021 rules. That'll be a very interesting thing to know in the comments below. If you're new around here, to subscribe to this channel for the podcast, you can check out these two, their handles, Twitter handles on screen the entire time. If you do want to support us directly as well, you like what we do around here, you can check us out on Patreon or GT Omega and use the code PitlaneF1 at checkout to get yourself a racing chair. Obviously, on the entire time on screen, you've seen we're on all audio most audio platforms. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and we'll see you hopefully next week, basically, for another episode. Till then, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.